AMP value equivalent to 0.017 a coin at present reach 0.0017. The previous day's close 0.17, the change was 0.00%. Converse rate US dollars to AMP value forecast for 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, and 2027 AM. P cost forecast for September 2023 at 0.02 greatest cost in the first position. Cheapest rate 0.001 for the month's average. 0.017 AMP cost figure at the conclusion of the month 0.0015 change for September 25% AMP to United States dollars expectations for October 2023 initially cost at 0.015 most extreme cost 0.16 cost 0.12 less than the average for the month 0.14 AMP cost estimate for the months and 0.0013 change for October 13.3% AMP cost expectation for November 2023 starting cost at 0.013 highest cost. 0.13 lowest price 0.10 standard for the month 0.12 AMP cost estimate for the month and 0.0011 change for November 15.4% AMP to US dollars forecasts for December 2023's initial cost at 0.011 AMP's greatest cost. 0.13 less expensive than 0.11 the average for the month 0.12 AMP cost forecast for the upcoming months and 0.0012 change for December 99.1% AMP cost forecast for January 2024 in advance. Cost at 0.012 greatest expense 0.0012 minimum cost 0.09 standard for the month 0.0011 AMP cost gauge toward the months and 0.0010 change for January 16.7% Bitcoin value forecast 2023-2024 to 2026 empty United States dollars expectations for February 2024 initial cost at 0.010 greatest cost 0.010 lowest cost 0.7 the average. For the month 0.009 AMP cost metric relative to the months and 0.008% change for February 20% of the AMP cost forecast for WAC 2024 to begin at 0.08 greatest cost. 0.00008 minimum cost 0.007 times the average for the month 0.008 AMP cost estimation at the conclusion of the month 0.007 change for spring 12.5% AMP to United States dollar anticipations for April 2024 at the highest initial cost of 7 cents. 0.007 least expense 0.006 times the average for the month 0.007 AMP cost figure at the conclusion of the month change of 0.00006 for April 14.3% AMP cost expectation for May 2024's first place. Cost at 0.06 least expense 0.00006 times the average for the month 0.007 AMP cost figure for the months and 0.007 change for May 16.7% AMP to US dollar forecasts for June 2024's greatest cost at 0.07 AMP. 0.9 least expense 0.007 times the average for the month 0.00008 AMP expense estimation at the conclusion of the month 0.008 change for June 14.3% AMP cost expectation for July 2024 prior to all LSE cost at 0.088 highest cost. 0.00008 minimum cost 0.007 times the average for the month 0.008 AMP cost figure for the months and 0.7% change for July 12.5% AMP to US dollars forecasts for August 2024 were initially estimated at 7 cents maximum cost. 0.07 least expense 0.006, the average for the month 0.7 amps cost estimate by the end of the month 0.006 change for August 14.3% amp cost forecast for September 2024 to begin at the greatest cost of 6 cents 0.006 least expense 0.006 times the average. For the month 0.006 amp, cost estimate by the end of the month 0.06% change, for September 0% amp cost forecast for November 2025 initial highest cost at 0.03% 0.3 least expense 0.003 times the average, for the month 0.003 amp cost. Estimate by the end of the month 0.00003 change, for November 0% amp to US dollars forecasts for December 2025 to begin at the greatest cost of 3 cents 0.00003 least cost 0.00003 the average, for the month 0.00003 amp, cost gauge toward the months, and 0.0.003 change, for December 0% amp cost forecast for January 2026 starting price at 0.03 greatest cost 0.003 least expense 0.00003 times the average, for the month 0.00003 amp, cost figure at the conclusion of the month 0% vacant United States. Dollar forecasts for February 2026 were initially priced at a maximum of 0.03 in January, 0.00003 less expensive than the monthly average of 0.003 an amp cost gauge for the months, and 0.00003 change for February 0% amp cost forecast for WAC 2026. Beginning, cost at 0.03 highest cost 0.3% less expensive than the average, for the month. Today marks 11 years since Block CEO Jack Dorsey made what seemed to be his first public comments about Bitcoin. At the time, Bitcoin was only worth $11, and he praised it. In 2012, when he went to the University of Michigan, he gave his support. At the time, the endorsement didn't get much attention outside of the Bitcoin talk group. Pete Rizzo, who works as a Bitcoin historian, found the recording of the visit today on X. Still, Dorsey's comments are important because of his public role in Bitcoin's history, which led to his current job as CEO of Block, a company that works to improve Bitcoin's use and technology. The company, which used to be called Square, has been a leader in payments for a long time, and its backing keeps Bitcoin in the mainstream. In 2012, Dorsey gave a speech at the University of Michigan where he talked honestly about his thoughts on new technologies and how interested he was in Bitcoin. At the time, Bitcoin was still a relatively unknown digital currency. On its few markets, it only traded for an average of $11 per unit.